Samoothiri of Kozhikode is the hereditary royal title used by the Hindu Eradi rulers of the medieval Kingdom of Kozhikode on the Malabar Coast. The Samoodiris ruled for almost 6 centuries, between c. 12th and 18th century AD, based at the city of Kozhikode, one of the more important trading centers in southern India. The Portuguese trader and navigator Vasco da Gama visited Kozhikode in 1498, opening the sailing route directly from Europe to India. Capitals: the Eradis, with their original base at Nedarupan, were landlocked and sought an outlet to the Arabian Sea. The Eradis subsequently moved the capital to the port of Kozhikode, then also called Trivikramapuram. According to K.V. Krishna Yar, a historian, the city of Kozhikode was founded on a marshy tract along the Malabar coast in the 11th century AD. During classical antiquity and the Middle Ages, Kozhikode was dubbed the City of Spices for its role as the major trading point of eastern spices. The name Kozhikode is thought to be derived from Koil and Kota, meaning fortified palace. Others have called the city by different names. The Arabs called it Calicut, Tamils called the city Calicut, for the Chinese it was Califor. The name of the famous fine variety of hand-woven cotton cloth called calico that was exported from the port is also thought to have derived from Kozhikode. Other seats of the Samoothiri were Ponani, Tricur and Cranganore. Succession line: 5 places of dignity existed in Kozhikode, each with its own separate property enjoyed in succession by the senior members of the 3 royal branches of the family. The Samoothiris family, being Eradis, are connected to several other Eradi clans who are resident in Nilambar, Bonani and nearby localities in Malappuram district. The first place of dignity was the Samoothiri himself. The second-in-line successor to the throne is known as the Aralpad, and his official seat was in Karampura. This area was annexed from Valluvanad in the leadership of the then Aralpad in the first half of the 14th century. The third was the Iranad Moon Namkur Nambrayadhiri Thirumalpad. The fourth, known as the Atatornade Nambrayadhiri Thirumalpad, and the fifth, the Nedarupumutu Eradi Thirumalpad. The 3 royal branches were Kisaka, Padinair and Putia. The senior female member of the whole Samoothiri family, the Valluvanad, also enjoyed a places of dignity with separate property known as the Ambadi Royal Branch. Dominions: apart from the southern half of Karamburanad, Vijayanagara, Aralnad, Ponani, Cheranad, Venkatakota, Malappuram, Kapil, Manarakad, Karampura, Nedunganad, Naduvattam, Kolangadu, Kotuvaya, Mankara and Polanad. The Kingdom of Kozhikode included the following territories as tributary states during the late 15th century: Kottayam, Payormala, Pulavaya, Tanor, Chalyam, Bipur, Parapanad, Tirunavaya, Kakada, Talapalli, Punatua, Chittur, Chavakada, Kavalapara, Edapalli, Pattanhattadam, Cranganore, Kolangod, Kochi and all of its vassal states, Paravur, Purakada, Vadakamkur, Tekamkur, Kayamkulam and Quilin. The kingdom only included the following territories during the late 18th century: Vijayanagara, Polanad, Aralnad, Cheranad, Venkatakota, Malappuram, Kapil, Manarakad, Karampura, Nedunganadam, Ponani. The Samoothiri claimed to be the paramount sovereign over Payormala, Pulavaya, Bipur, Parapanad, Tanor, Talapalli, Chavakada and Kavalapara. Calicut had also taken possession of sovereignty over Kolangadu, Kotuvaya and Managara. The chief ports under direct control were Puttaparttanam, Pantalyani Kollam, Calicut, Tanur, Ponani, Chetwai and Cranganore. History: According to tradition, Kozhikode state was founded around 826 AD as Nedaripuswaupam. The city of Kozhikode was founded in 1026. Between the 27th of April 1766 and 1792 the state was annexed by the Mysore kingdom. On the 18th of August 1792 it became a princely state under British protectorate. The territory was annexed by the British Raj on the 15th of November 1806 and reduced to an estate. Before the Portuguese arrival. Legendary origins. Famous legends such as the origin of Kerala tell the establishment of a local ruling family at Nedarapu, near present-day Kondoti, by two young brothers belonging to the Eradi clan. The brothers, Manikan and Vikraman, were the most trusted generals in the army of the Cheras. However, during the legendary partition of Chera kingdom, the king didn't give any land to these two brothers. Due to his feeling of guilt, the king later gave his personal sword and his favorite prayer conch to his general and told him to occupy as much as land he can with all his might. So the general conquered neighboring states and created a powerful kingdom for himself. As a token of his respect to the Chera king, he adopted the logo of two crossed swords, with a broken conch in the middle and a lighted lamp above it. Rulers of Valluvanad. Historical records regarding the origin of the Samoothiri of Kozhikode is obscure. However, it's generally agreed that the Samoothiris were originally the rulers of Valluvanad region of the later Chera kingdom and were known as the Eradis. Valluvanad province was situated in the northern parts of present-day Malappuram district and was landlocked by the Valluvanad and Polanadu in the west. It is known that Eradis, along with other governors and chiefs, helped the later Cheras during an attack by Western Gangas on the kingdom. This event is even now celebrated as a historical event in Chittoor Taluk where the fight took place. Erlandu Utaivar appears as signatories in the Jewish copper plate and the Syrian Christian copper plate. Around the breakup the later Chera kingdom in 11th–12th century AD, several of its chieftains and governorates became independent. Valluvanad was perhaps one of these new states originated from the ruins of the later Chera state. Although there is no solid basis for the famous partition legend surrounding the end of later Cheras, it is a possibility that following the mysterious disappearance of the Chera ruler, the land was partitioned and that the governors of different nadis gained independence, proclaiming it as the gift from the last sovereign. Rule from Kozhikode. After the de-establishment of later Chera kingdom, the Aralpadu came to rule over the city of Kozhikode. There is some ambiguity regarding the exact course of events that led to the establishment of Eradis' rule over Kozhikode, the later capital. According to A. Sridhara Menon, a prominent historian, after the later Cheras, Kozhikode and its suburbs formed part of a kingdom called Polanadu ruled by Polatiris. The Eradis of Valluvanad were landlocked and sought an outlet to the Arabian Sea to initiate trade and commerce with the distant lands. To accomplish this, the Eradis marched with the Nairs towards Paniankara and besieged the Polatiri in his headquarters, resulting in a 48-year-long war. Finally, the Eradis emerged victorious in their conquest of Polanad and shifted the headquarters from Nedarapu to Kozhikode. Eradis built a fort at a place called Velappuram to safeguard the new interests. The fort most likely lent its name to Kolkata. The stories about the origin of the Kadithanadu dynasty is associated with battles of the Eradis with Polanadu. When the Samoothiri attacked Polanadu, he exiled a Polatiri royal princess from his territory and she was welcomed in Kannanur. The Samoothiri's rivals, and after the marriage with Kannanur prince with this princess the Kadithanadu dynasty originated. The name Kadithanadu refers to as the passing way between Kannanur and Calicut. However, M.G.S. Narayanan, another famous historian, in his book, Calicut, The City of Truth, states that the Eradi was in fact a favourite of the last later Chera king, as the Eradi was at the forefront of the battles with the Chola Pandya forces to the south of his kingdom and led the army to victory. The king therefore granted him, as a mark of favour, a small tract of land on the seacoast in addition to his hereditary possessions. This patch of wasteland is called Chalikada. The Eradis subsequently moved the capital to the coastal marshy lands and established the city of Kozhikode, then also called Trivikramapuram. The Eradi later assumed the title of Samoothiri and continued to rule from Kozhikode. The term came into use only after the 15th century, first time in the writings of Abdul Razak Ibn Battuta visited the country in the 14th century and refers to the rulers as Punth Uresh and Kunalaknatiri. The title Samoothiri was shortened to Samoothiri over time in common usage. Access to the sea helped the Eradi chief to develop the city into one of the major trading centers of the Eastern world, abounding in a wide variety of goods like black pepper, textiles, black ginger, cinnamon, myrobalans, and zedori. Vessels of various sizes from around the world, like Chinese junks, arrived on the shores of Calicut. Early conquests. The power balance in Malabar changed as Valluvanad rulers developed the port at Kozhikode, allied with Muslim, Arab and Chinese merchants, and used most of the wealth from Kozhikode to develop a huge army. The Samoothiri became the most powerful king in the Malayalam-speaking regions during the Middle Ages and harbored greater ambitions to extend the rule over the whole of former Chera state. This motivated them to enter into battles with neighboring kingdoms with great success. Smaller states south of Kozhikode soon had to submit to her and became the feudatories one by one. The rulers of Payamala, Karambanad, and other Nair chiefs on the suburbs of Kozhikode also acknowledged the supremacy of Kozhikode. There were battles between Kozhikode and Karambanad for a long coastal region called Vijayanagara. Vijayanagara was a part of Karambanad in early times, and was given as a royal gift to Kozhikode. Kozhikode easily overran the Karambanad forces in the battle, and Karambanad had to sue for peace by surrendering Valluvanad. Battle of Thirunavar. But it took almost 100 years for Kozhikode to organize an attack on Valluvanad, the most powerful adversary of Kozhikode in their early conquests. After the possible conquest of Kozhikode in the 13th century, the immediate aim of the Kozhikode rulers was to capture the holy city of Thirunavar. They took advantage of the Saivite Vishnavite enmity in western Valluvanad. In the most recent conflict, the Vaishnavites of Tirumanassery province of Valluvanad had attacked and burned a nearby Saivite village. The rulers of Valluvanad and Parampadapu came to help the Saivites and attacked the Vaishnavites simultaneously. Tirumanassery province was soon occupied by its neighbors on south and east, Kochi and Valluvanad. The ruler of Tirumanassery appealed to Kozhikode and Tanna for help, and promised to cede Ponani to Kozhikode as the price for his military protection. Ponani was an important port in the Tirumanassery province, and was an ancient center of Muslims in Malabar. Kozhikode, looking for such an opportunity, gladly accepted the offer, along with the combined armies of the subordinate kings and the two of Shah Bandar Koyas. Kozhikode army advanced by both land and sea on the first major expedition to the south. The main army under the command of Samoothiri himself attacked an allied army of Valluvanad and Kochi from the north. initiating the Tirunavara War. The battles were fought between Tirunavara and Vakaya. Meanwhile, another huge force under Aralpadu commanded the navy across the sea and landed at Ponani and later moved to Tirumanassery, with intention to attack Tirunavara in Valluvanad from the south with help of the army of the Vaishnavites. Aralpadu also prevented the army of Kochi joining Valluvanad army. The Muslim naval merchants and commanders at Ponani supported this army with food, transport and provisions. The army of the Aralpadu moved north and crossed the Nila River and took up position on the northern side of the river. In spite of the fact that the soldiers of Valluvanad did not get the timely help of Kochi, they fought vigorously and the battle dragged on. In the meantime, the Kozhikode was also successful in turning Kadana Manarelevik Isle Velordi to the side. Finally, 2 Valluvanad princes were killed in the battle and Kozhikode annexed Tirunavara, winning the Tirunavara War. The Tirunavara War was not the end of Kozhikode's expansion into Valluvanad. Samoothiri continued attacks on Valluvanad. Malappuram, Nilamba, Valapanatukara and Manjeri were easily occupied from Valluvanad, but he encountered stiff resistance in some places and the fights went on in a protracted and sporadic fashion for a long time. But further military operations against Valluvanad were neither prolonged nor difficult for Kozhikode. Moreover, Samoothiri successfully followed a policy of appeasing the feudatories, governors of Valluvanad, and conferring upon them the areas they originally held under Valluvanad. Battles for Pantilura and Tenkalams. But the battles in the western borders of Valluvanad was bitter, for it was marked by treachery and crime. Pantilura and Tenkalams came under Kozhikode only after a protracted struggle. The assassination of a minister of Kozhikode by the chief minister of Valluvanad while visiting Venkatakota in Valluvanad sparked the battle, which dragged on for almost a decade. At last the Valluvanad minister was captured by Samoothiri's forces and executed at Padaparambu, and his province were occupied by the Samoothiri. The Kizaka Kovilakar Manalapadu, who took a leading part in this campaign, received half of the newly captured province from Samoothiri as a gift. The loss of this brave and fiercely loyal chief minister was the greatest blow to Valluvanad after the loss of Tirunavara and Ponani. Further conquests in the south. Kozhikode faced defeat for the first time in the next attack on Kochi. The combined army of Kochi and Valluvanad resisted Calicut forces and a bloody battle ensued for 3 days, at the end of which Calicut army was on the retreat. After a period of uneasy calm in Malabar, Calicut invaded Nedunganad, a small state between Valluvanad and Palghat. Nedunganad was annexed without striking even a single blow. At Kodaikuni, the king of Nedunganad surrendered to the Calicut forces. Then the Calicut forces annexed a number of smaller towns around Tirunavara such as Tiruvagapuram from Valluvanad. But at Kolakada, the Valluvanad governor tried to overcome the Calicut prince's advance. Near Karampura in Valluvanad, the common people resisted the advancing army. The Calicut won their affection by gifts and presents. At Karakada, Calicut prince was met by an ancestor of Kavalaparanaz, a vassal of Valluvanad. At Vengoti, Nelai and Kakathodu, the governors of Palghat surrendered to Calicut. Zamorin of Calicut appointed the Aralpadu as the governor of southern Malabar region during this time. The provincial capital was at Karampura. Talapi and Chengajinad submitted to Calicut without any resistance after an invasion by Calicut's Nair army. Conquests of Kochi. Calicut then annexed the whole of Ponani Taluk from Valluvanad and captured Vanarinadu from Kochi. The Kochi ruler was forced to shift their capital further south to Tiruvanchikulam. In the 14th century, Calicut temporarily conquered large parts of central Kerala. Even Trichinomatilakam near Tiruvannamalai was under the control, and Kochi ruler again shifted the capital further south to Kochi. In the 15th century, Calicut conquered large parts of the Kochi kingdom, and reduced it to a vassal, feudatory state. The family feud between the elder and younger branches of the royal family of Kochi was exploited by the Calicut to conquer Kochi. The military intervention was initiated as Calicut's help was sought against the ruling younger branch of the Kochi royals. The rulers of Cranganore, Idapali, Sakara, Pattanhattadam and Chittor supported joined Calicut forces in this occupation of Kochi. Some of these were the vassals of Kochi. The Kochi king was defeated in a battle at Tricur and his palace was occupied, but the defeated king escaped to further south. Pursuing the king to south, the Calicut army under Zamorin penetrated and occupied the city of Kochi. Unable to withstand the attacks, Kochi finally accepted Calicut's rule and became his feudatory. The elder branch ruler was installed on the throne of Kochi as vassal ruler. However, the sway did not last long. The battles against Kochi were followed by a war against Palghat and the conquest of Naduvattam by Calicut prince Kolengo de Venganadu Nambitis was also put under the sway of Calicut during the time. The severe and frequent battles with Valluvanad by Calicut continued, but even after the loss of his superior ally Kochi, Valluvanad did not submit to Calicut. Unrest continued in the occupied regions of Valluvanad, and to counter this Calicut followed a custom of settling Muslim families and the families of other Hindu generals who had allegiance to him. In the captured areas of Valluvanad, Calicut invaded Valluvanad but could not make much progress, because these regions were dense forests and hills. It was impossible for Calicut's large army to march forth through these areas. Valluvanad numerically inferior army successfully kept the armies of Calicut at bay. Relations with Cannanore. Calicut was also successful in bringing the powerful state of Cannanore under the control. During his conquests, the Zamorin occupied Pantalayini column as a preliminary advance to Cannanore. Kolatri immediately sent ambassadors to submit to whatever terms Calicut might dictate. Cannanore officially transferred the regions already occupied to Calicut and certain Hindu temple rites. Calicut and Cannanore fought numerous battles before the arrival of the Portuguese. Later, this rivalry paved the way for an anti-Zamorin alliance between the Portuguese and Cannanore. Possible expedition to Venadu. After the conquests in central Kerala, Calicut probably waged war against Quillan and led a southern expedition. However, some historians reject the whole of idea of the southern expedition by Calicut. According to them, some land and Hindu temple rites were transferred to Calicut during an official visit to Quillan by the ruler of the Calicut. The nominal reason for the military expedition was to protect the rights of the Brahmins in Quillan. Quillan had earlier opposed the expansion Calicut supremacy south of Kochi. However, the Calicut forces advanced by Chetwa and Kanha River. The Zamorin crossed the backwater at Vipan, marching through Kiranganad, Karapuram, Payatukad, Alapi, Trikunipura and Kartakapli, and entered Odanat. Soon, the ruler of Quillan propitiated Calicut by paying the expenses of the battles, ceding the lands known as Manjaramukatam. Quillan also agreed to send annual tribute along with the flag of fealty to Tirunavaya for the Mammankam festival. Calicut's attitude towards the vanquished kings and foreign governors was generally marked by moderation. The whole conquered area was not ruled directly from Calicut but was ruled by Calicut official. Sometimes, its former rulers allowed to rule as a vassal or feudatory. Now, the kingdom covered almost all of Malabar and Kochi, and the rulers of Quillan were made tributaries. Soon afterwards, Devaraya II of Vijayanagara Vijayanagara Empire conquered the whole of present-day Kerala state. He defeated Quillan as well as Calicut. For now Nunez says that the Zamorin and even the kings of Burma ruling at Pegu and Tenasserim paid tribute to the king of Vijayanagara Empire. Later, Calicut and Quillan rebelled against the Vijayanagara overlords, but Devaraya II quelled the rebellion. As the Vijayanagara power diminished over the next 50 years, Zamorin again rose to prominence on the Malabar Coast. Samoothiri built a fort at Ponani in 1498. Relations with the Portuguese. The landing of Vasco da Gama in Calicut in 1498 with 2 ships has often been considered as the beginning of a new phase during which the control of the Indian Ocean passed into the hands of the Europeans. The strong colony of Arab merchants settled in Calicut was hostile, but the Zamorin welcomed the Portuguese and allowed them to take pepper, drugs, etc. on board. In Portugal, the goods brought by Gama from India were computed at 60 times the cost of the entire expedition. Calicut soon allied with the other Indian states on the western coast against the Portuguese and participated in a number of naval battles against them. Kanhali Makar were the famous hereditary head admirals of Calicut and organized a powerful navy to fight the Portuguese. Relation with the Dutch and English. A Dutch fleet arrived in Calicut in November 1604 and marked the beginning of the Dutch presence on the Indian coast and concluded a treaty with Calicut on the 11th of November 1604. It provided for a mutual alliance between the two to expel the Portuguese from Malabar. In return, the Dutch East India Company was given facilities for trade at Calicut and Ponani, including spacious storehouses. Later in 1661, Calicut joined a coalition led by the Dutch to defeat the Portuguese and Kochi and conducted a number of successful campaigns. The Dutch virtually ruled Malabar for a period of 135 years. As a result of the Q letters, the Dutch settlements on the Malabar coast were surrendered to the British in 1795 in order to prevent being overrun by the French. Dutch Malabar remained British after the conclusion of the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1814, which traded the colony with Banker Island. The English reached Calicut in 1615 under Captain William Keeling and concluded a treaty of trade under which, among others, the English were to assist Calicut in expelling the Portuguese from Kochi and Cranganore. In 1664, Zamorin gave the English permission to build a factory in Calicut but did not extend any other favours. Mysore occupation and settlement negotiations. In 1766, Mysore forces under Hyder Ali marched to Malabar and easily conquered Malabar up to Kochi. As Mysore edged closer to the outer reaches of the city of Calicut, the Zamorin sent most of his relatives to safe haven in Ponani and to avoid the humiliation of surrender committed self-immolation by setting fire to his palace at Menashira. After the suicide of the king, some members of the Zamorin family rebelled against the occupiers. The Crown Prince Krishnavarma with his nephew Ravi Varma lead anti-Mysore activities based in southern Malabar. Anti-Mysore activities were secretly supported by the English East India Company, though Mysore conferred on the Zamorin Prince Ajagir. After taking charge, he continued the revolt. Mysore soon sent an army under the command of M. Lali and Mir Azrali Khan and crushed the uprising. Later, Ravi Varma joined the infamous Pichi rebellion of Pashasi Raja Koshiot Raja. He died in combat, while Krishnavarma committed suicide upon capture by the company. In the settlement negotiations with the Joint Commission after the Anglo-Mysore Wars, the Zamorin proved recalcitrant. to pressure him. A portion of his territories was leased to the ruler of Karamboranad as manager for the English East India Company. Finally, after prolonged negotiations, the hereditary territory of the Zamorin, together with the coin mint and the sea customs, was leased back to him. He was also temporarily given jurisdiction over the petty rulers, and, as a mark of the Zamorins' exceptional position in Malabar, the revenue fixed for Bipur, Parapanad and Vetitunad was to be paid through him. As previously noted, these tax payment and jurisdictional arrangements were terminated in 1799, and the Zamorin became a mere pensioned landlord.